Hello and welcome to another episode of Ewell Acres. Today we're going to continue on with our beekeeping discussion. We're going to be talking about 4 more tools that are not necessary for you to do beekeeping, but will help you to be more successful. Let's get started. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about tools that within beekeeping are nice to have but not necessary. When you're looking at many different tools, there is a huge range of tools that I would consider necessary, bare necessity tools to actually have you be successful that are absolutely needed. And then there's others that are nice to have to make your life a little bit easier, and then there's tools that are like, why did they even invent this, or why is this even a thing? It makes no sense whatsoever. This is going to be in the category of my own personal opinion of tools that are nice to have but not necessary for you to be successful. The first item that we have is what's called a comb cutter. Now, this is a very specialized, specific device that you use to physically comb honey out of your area. Now, this is only a tool that's going to be utilized if you're using comb honey. There's a couple different versions of it. There's a disc that you can use to press into the honey. There's a knife that you can use just to cut around the outer edges and extract the whole honeycomb. And this is a very specific tool utilized only when it comes to comb honey. So that's why I say it's nice to have if you want to start getting into comb honey. Is it necessary? No. Next item that I have is going to be a little bit more used often when you're dealing with beekeeping, and it's not going to be as niche of an item as the comb cutter. And that is a sieve, cullender, or some other type of a device to help filter your honey. When you go to harvest your honey, there's inevitably going to be bee parts, wax particles, maybe other detritus or debris that's been brought in with it. And that is always going to be a part of that beekeeping. And when you go to use your honey, you don't necessarily want to have dead bee legs floating around in your honey. Or if you sell the honey, you don't want to have that material in there potentially clouding it up. So, is it necessary to have some sort of a device to help filter your honey when you go to harvest it? No, but this is one of those items that's probably a little bit more recommended to have on hand. That way you can filter out the wax, you can filter out some of the excess material, and if you don't like the pollen in your honey, then you can get a finer sieve material to actually filter out some of those pollen. I personally like having some of that pollen in my personal use honey just because it is going to help with allergies. And so I use a slightly larger cullender so I don't filter out some of that pollen, because I don't mind it being a little bit more cloudy. I don't mind it being a little bit more floating. Some of the honey that I sell at my local farmers markets or other locations that I sell for side income to help support my habit of beekeeping, I want it to be a little bit clearer, a little bit more professionally presentable. So on those, I actually have a colander and sieve that has a much finer material on it, so that way I can filter out it. So it's going to be a much clearer honey and more visually, aesthetically pleasing. Whatever your personal preference is, you can use it at that, but that is what that filter is used for. The third item on my list goes a little bit off to the side. Once again, it's not necessary to have, but it's something that you may want to consider as you're getting more into beekeeping to have on hand, just in case, to help your bees survive. And that item is called a sugar board. What a sugar board is it is liquid feed or sugar granulars that have been compressed into a solid sugar system. The reason why this is important is if there's a dearth or if your bees are getting a little bit hungry, essentially what you can do is add a little liquid bee feed to help them. They'll drink that. That will help them to survive if they're a little bit starving or low on food. Well, using liquid feed works spring, summer, fall, when temperatures are warmer. Well, what do you do if you live in an area like mine where it gets very cold and you get down to freezing temperatures for even a short period of time? For me, it's a very long period of time. In that case, you would use the sugar board. It is granular sugar that you can compress into a board, and that way the bees can harvest that sugar, utilize it as a source of feed, even though it's very cold temperatures, and that way the liquid feed won't be freezing. It's already in a solid state, so you don't have to worry about that. How is it that you make a sugar board? Well, go ahead and click on this video right here, and I've got a DIY version of how you can go ahead and help to winterize your bees to making a sugar board system in just little plates or patties. There's many different ways. You can get it commercially available, you can do it a DIY yourself, but it's something that is easily done that you can do with just materials found out of your own home. Now, the last item that I've got as a part of this list of items that I would recommend that are easily used to help you, to tools that are necessary but not necessarily necessary, is going to be one that I state every single time. Education, education, education. Learn as much as you can. Go rent books from the library. Go watch videos. Go look at things on the internet. Wherever you go, learn to try and have it from a reputable source. Learn as much information as possible to help you become a much better, successful beekeeper. The more knowledge you have, the more successful you'll be, the less money you'll waste on purchasing new bees or resources or tools that you don't necessarily need. These are just some tools that I find that are nice to have, but not necessarily. What are your thoughts? Are these items, have I stated some that you believe should have been on this list, some that I missed, some that I added to this list that you're just like, why in the world did you add that? That makes no sense whatsoever. Let us know in the comments below. I'm always curious to hear what your thoughts are. Once again, thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the ringing bell for future videos that are being posted all the time. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.